Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show.
Fucking funeral procession sitting here like.
No, it's official.
And now we're live.
Welcome to Litsock Talks Stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are the English.
Willem,
Wait.
is there a swearing policy?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
No.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, weird thing about the watershed that a lot of people don't understand. People are like, you can't swear on TV until after 8. Not true. Only if your audience potentially composes of 60% or more minors.
I highly
So
doubt
you're
that's going to be our
creating
target audience
children's
today.
programming, watershed doesn't apply,
Excellent.
you know.
Okay.
Well, there's your piece of info for the day. Thanks,
Nice.
Willem.
We're
So
learning.
just do like a no kids.
Okay.
Don't watch
Stop.
this.
If you're a child,
Consecutively.
stop.
Please stop. It's just better for you.
Turn it off now. We will blow your mind.
So we're about to have a very articulate and
Yeah.
well thought out
Yeah.
session. All right, who are we?
Let's talk.
All right, and who are we?
I'm Melissa. Hi.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
I'm Tom.
Hi, Tom. Hi. I'm Quiva.
Hi, Quiva.
Wow, thanks.
How do you spell that?
You don't actually. Yeah, here at Litsock, we don't spell.
No.
We just feel. So we're here to talk. So let's get started.
Yeah, let's do that. We haven't been doing that.
Yeah,
Speaky words.
we love that. So we want to talk about some literature that's made a big impact on our lives. I'm gonna leave the definition of the word literature up to both of you individually.
No, we're gonna leave it up to the dictionary.
So what's the
that is-
dictionary say?
I would have to Google that.
Yeah, so then we're just gonna have to pretend that we know what the dictionary definition is.
In the words of
Oxford.
Merriam-Webster
Herself.
herself, word right.
We love it.
Word right good.
Word right good.
Good.
Sometimes word right bad.
But we'll get on to that in due course. So, what is your favorite word right good
Oh,
that you've ever come across?
that's the question.
Mhm.
Besides my own,
True.
my own word written good.
Yes.
Just
The
the one word.
one word that you
One
wrote
word.
good. You spelled it
I've
right.
written a good word once.
What do you
You
think?
go first, Melissa.
Oh, gee, thanks.
You're welcome. I'm
what-
so kind.
Pass the mic. So what you like? You like books? You like poems?
You like books?
You
You
read?
like books?
You like to read? What do you do?
I read good.
You read good.
No, okay. I have not had a chance to read a book in like a year.
That's so fair.
It's
I don't think any of us have, really.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Books aren't
who
real.
let us be in a literature society?
None of us can read.
None of us can read.
we can write though.
Right, and that's
So
what
we
matters.
do. Yes.
That is what
Oh,
matters.
other people can read my shit. That's
Yeah.
not my job.
Then they can. Yeah. Then
You
there's
just
the
need to
reading.
memorize it. Regurgitate it.
That's fine.
That's totally fine.
Well,
Yeah.
what's like the last book you can remember reading?
That you can remember. That's the impact it made on you.
So let's go back to my teenage. No. Okay, well, the last book I read was probably a Stephen King book.
Ooh.
And
Spook.
yeah, I mean, I do like. So you had the Gunslinger.
Yeah.
You know
Oh, I
that
never
that
read
whole like the Dark Tower series.
Oh yeah.
Love them. But I mean, impact wise, like that was just a nice escape to you know have something to read.
Yeah.
Impact wise, I do like. Have you ever read Go Ask Alice?
No.
I haven't, but I have heard of it.
Yeah, I
Sounds
mean,
familiar.
I read it when I was 12,
Yeah.
which was only a handful of years ago, really.
You can count it on your hands.
It feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
And your toes, no.
No.
So I mean, it's basically about like drugs and one girl, Alice, her experience. So I remember reading that at 12 and being like, "What? I'm never doing this.
Yeah.
Drugs are bad.
Drugs
Don't
are
do it.
bad.
Don't do drugs."
We here at UCD don't condone drug.
Don't condone bad drug, which is all drug.
All drug
all,
bad.
all
Yeah.
drugs are bad except medicinal.
Yes.
Poetry is my drug.
Please don't
Medicinal
use.
poetry.
Please don't use poetry as medicine.
Prescription poetry.
I take 150 milligrams of poetry every
Every day.
morning.
Straight into the vein.
And it
No.
cured my bad thoughts.
Listen to your local midwives, everybody.
Ah.
Yeah. All right. So we have some Stephen King, some anti-drug propaganda. Very good.
Well, I mean, the book wasn't anti-drug. It was just about
anti.
I mean, it made me
anti-bad vibes.
Anti-bad
yes,
vibes.
yes.
What about you, Tom?
God, the last book I think I can remember reading was I reread The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton.
I love that book.
Love that book. Can't stand S.E. Hinton. She's blocked me on Twitter.
What?
That's
It's like what 90-year-old woman has come for you.
She's
Tom
so
Hayes.
bitter, but I love that book. I
It's
love
so
that book
good.
so much. I read it when I was really young, and I just thought it was fucking fantastic. And like to know that she wrote it when she was so young at the time, like really affected me, like as a young creative.
So I have not read this book. I mean, it's now on my list.
Yeah,
Ooh.
it's
Why?
really lovely.
Yeah,
is it?
it's about like troubled youth.
Yeah.
You
In
know,
the
and
50s?
yeah, it's like Greasers era.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like, and you know, and there's this little family unit in it that's all brothers because their parents aren't in the picture anymore. So there's a lot of like, you know, boys supporting each other
Yeah,
and like
that's real
learning to like
wholesome.
express their emotions and be affectionate
Yeah.
in spite of like really awful circumstances.
Yeah,
And you know,
Oh.
very sad.
Yeah.
But S.E. Hinton apparently does not appreciate when you imply that any character she's written may have not been straight.
Oh.
She's not.
Controversial.
I wouldn't have said anything except like she like tweeted something where she was just like, "All my characters are straight because
Look,
fuck
you don't know that. You just don't know that.
And I was just like, sounds fake.
Fake news.
All these men who hang out with each
No
other.
thanks.
Bye.
It's a brotherhood. No.
Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose when characters get written, that person might have an idea of where they're going, but then I think everybody takes
Yeah.
on their own perception.
Oh,
of
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Death of the author. Like once you put something out
honestly.
into the word
Yeah.
for like other people to read, like they're allowed to have their own interpretations
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Like as annoying as that can be sometimes as a writer, because you're like, no, that's not what I
My
meant.
baby, yeah.
But I think a big part of being a writer of any kind of like literary work is accepting that like you're giving up a part of something once you're sharing it with the world.
Yeah.
And that can be a good thing. It can be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I think it's just like there's something so apart from the fact that it is quite liberating actually to be able to let something go for your readers. It's so irritating and it's really like disrespectful, I think, to a degree, to come in and try and prove something that you mightn't even have thought of. I mean, obviously everyone knows about the fucking nonsense with J.K. Rowling, and I mean,
I was just going to
that's
say
been going on for years and years, and no one cares anymore. Like, it's genuinely put such like, I mean, Harry Potter was good, and
Just really distracted by other people's hair.
it's everywhere.
It could be mine.
Or
Oh,
anti-hair.
it's okay.
It's grand.
You're anti-hair.
And anti-hair up here in UCD Litsock. I think we got some sort of gradient because my hair is getting a bit shaggy now. Your
Yeah.
hair is obviously quite long, and then you have
No hair. No
some
hair.
hair, some hair, and then no hair.
I have kind of an essence of hair.
I love the essence of
Ode to
hair.
hair. There we go. But yeah, basically J.K. Rowling is fucking nonsense,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's fair
But
for her to
guys,
kind of.
Dumbledore was like so gay.
Listen,
Except for
where?
the part where we're making a film about him now and he's not going to be gay in it.
Because that's just like.
Because, well, I mean, I'm like, he was his shit character anyway, so
Yeah.
it's not like I particularly wanted him to
but
be
like-
gay. But like, I'm like, you can't. There's no take backs.
Stop that.
That's not how this game works.
No, and what was your most recent thing?
Oh, fucking! I can't even remember because so many people were making jokes about it. I've actually forgotten what the original.
What the
thing was.
original thing, yeah. But she had a thing.
She said something. She said something.
She said
recently.
a lot of things.
Yeah.
She's also
I'm
Zionist.
getting
Yeah.
out Twitter. Twitter
Anyway.
is coming out.
Yeah. So basically, she tried to re-edit one of her other characters to make them look woke.
Yeah.
Which
I
is-
swear. It was like, again? Like,
Yeah.
really though?
God.
It's literally like she has a big wheel with all of the marginalized
Possible.
identities that you could have, and she spun it, and then she was like,
That'll do.
yeah, that's you now.
God. But she would also like to live her life never seeing or interacting with a member of any of these groups
Yes.
for as long as
Yes.
she lives.
Proud
Thanks.
neoliberal that she is.
Woo.
Yum yum. These are just the opinions expressed by
Yes.
several concerned readers of Harry Potter.
Yes.
Yes.
You know.
May or may not be affiliated with
Uh,
me personally.
The UCD Literary Society takes no responsibility for any opinions expressed by me
by us.
on
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling or
All opinions
know.
my own.
yes,
Mainly
the
at the
genocide
time
of
that I
Palestinians by the Israeli government.
It's just my humble
You
onion.
know. Yeah, you know.
Yeah. Anyway,
So apparently J.K. Rowling retweets a lot. So I'm now Googling. No, I'm Googling it because it's annoying me, and yeah, she just talks a lot of nonsense.
These are the
fun.
important issues of our time,
absolutely.
vis-a-vis.
One of the
Books.
one of the other questions that we were thinking of asking and
Actually,
discussing was,
You never answered the question.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Queebs.
you ain't
'Cause I was-
getting out that easily.
Because I was like, oh,
You
we're
think
already
you throw us
talking
a
about.
bit of tasty discourse and
No,
we'll
no,
just
no.
go away and we won't question you any
I
further.
never read.
Tangent.
What's the last book you read,
I'm a
Quiver?
fraud. What's the last book I read? Jesus, it's probably like, I don't know. It was probably some like Mary Berry like make your own smoothie thing.
Does that count as a?
I don't think so.
I mean, there
No.
were words, and it
There
is
were
in book
words.
form.
Genuinely cannot remember what the last book I read was. But the last book that I really remember like enjoying like to my core. Whoops, sorry, UCDTV. I just really love books. It was Jesus, what was it? It was The Bell Jar, because I'd never read it before. It was a couple of, I think it was the summer before last or something like that, and I was so non-committal to the actual act of reading that I downloaded the audiobook and let Maggie Gyllenhaal take me away, which is just
Oh,
part of the
wow.
experience. I know it was really good. Would
Yeah.
recommend.
That's peak homosexual behavior.
Oh, it was a lot going on there, but
Oh.
it's so gorgeous.
I'm giving up on this. All that's coming up is Dumbledore. There was a new controversy.
no one cares.
Yeah, whatever.
She's
basically-
not worth your time, Melissa.
No, just take it as word. She said something and it was nonsense.
It was nonsense.
But
So
yeah.
the bell jar.
Yeah, so obviously, like Sylvia Plath, I think, you know, as a collective, we stand her. I would say, you know, the world should. But I'd never read any of her long form stuff. I never read any of her diary entries or her letters or anything like that. Especially those I thought was a little bit voyeuristic. But this was just obviously there's so much of like the author herself actually in that book. But even without that context, it's such an important read, and it's so like her tone is just so dry, and she's so bitter and dreary. But she also like she's not like dejected, because she does talk about all of these things that are affecting her and things that are going on in the world in a really like profound way, without just, you know, being like, well, everything's shit, so why just, you know, why give up? She's always trying to look for ways to make her own life better. I don't know, I can't explain really why I enjoy it so much, but yeah. Love my gal. Love Sylvia.
God
Alright.
bless her.
Honestly. Rip in peace. So, on J.K. Rowling, etc., what is the worst book? Or the worst piece of creation that you have, literary creation that you have consumed?
It's a long
I'm
list.
sure you can think of the last thing easily enough.
I mean, the freshest thing in my mind
Yeah.
at the moment is poetry. You know,
I love bad poetry.
like I've heard a lot of bad poetry in my time,
Kids.
especially from other men. You know,
Oh.
like kind of being around other men in poetry scenes is so difficult because they like speak.
They say words.
They
in
say
their mouths.
and I have to listen, and like actually I'd rather not.
really
Like,
don't want to.
it's extremely exhausting because it's always like there's so many different subsections of like bad male poets,
Yeah.
but like the most obnoxious is always like they've got a bit of a flow, you know, like they're a white dude who's like listened to Run DMC once, so like you know, so he feels like he's got a little bit of something in him, so like
8 Mile cred.
you know, he just keeps
spitting rhymes.
spitting rhymes, and he thinks that getting faster is like an inherent skill. Like if you can say the poem as fast as possible, like it's we're all
Gold
gonna sit
standard,
there and
like.
go like, wow, he really do say words fast,
You did
like
that.
crazy. And like there's something as well, I mean, like you can have like bad rap, but like, you know, you can set a beat to something. Like if the production of a rap song is good enough, you can ignore shitty lyrics.
Yeah.
You know, shitty poets are stripped down to their most base,
Yeah.
so there's nothing to protect them from how bad their work is. Like, and it's always about a girl and she's always like either left him or is dead. And if she's dead, drugs were involved.
Oh man.
And
But she was about to leave him.
but she
before
was
she
going
died.
to leave him, but then she died, so she couldn't. So they're perpetually trapped in that final moment of a relationship where she would leave or she wouldn't leave, but then the choice was taken out of her hands. I'm writing a poem. Like, I've heard so many of this shit, and it's like she always had a body that like wasn't too sexy, but like was just the right kind of sexy for him.
Indie
And
man.
you know, she always smoked cigarettes and had beautiful scars, and it's just like, dude, I don't care. I don't care. Oh my god, leave this poor woman alone.
She's just trying to have a cigarette.
Like, fuck's sake, she's just trying to smoke. She's
Literally.
trying to rationalize that she's just had some bad sex and maybe she's not as into this guy as she thought she might have been, and he's sitting there going, God, the way her hair hit the pillow like sunsets leaving my life, and I'm just like, shut up! Shut up, I don't care.
0 out of 10.
Big thumbs down from me, thank you very much. No.
Oh, stop.
Oh wow.
Alyssa, what is your worst? What's your worst piece of lit?
Stop me before I say more.
We could go on forever.
We could go on. Okay. Aside from poetry, because we all have those moments of
yeah.
like, oh, this unique theme. I've never heard this before. I would have to say romance novels. You know, those really like girl meets boy. Girl is magically transformed into this angel-like being. Boy doesn't really understand that he wants girl but does want girl. Some big event happens and they all live happily ever after. And I'm like, meh.
No, like,
No, thank you.
I'm good. I generally do not finish those. Like, I love my nan and we have like the same taste. And she was like, so I got this book as a present and thought you might like want to read it. I was like, did you read it? She was like, no, I just have so much to read. I've not read it. So I was like, okay, cool. I got like a chapter in. I was like, what is this crap? She was like, I didn't want to throw it away. It was a new book.
such a waste.
Oh,
No,
jeepers.
because I'm just thinking about,
So
I never read it, but I'm just thinking about the fucking Ruby Sparks nonsense,
Ah.
where like it's all like it's hyper manic pixie dream girl, like taken to the absolute max, and it's just shit. It's just so
Just
hard.
can't be dealing.
I know.
Can't be doing. Like if I get like a few chapters in, because you know the way you're like, right, I'm a chapter in, maybe it's better. And you get a few chapters in, you're like, I will never have this time back.
No, I have given you a part of me.
I could have been reading something good.
Yeah.
Like
God, I could have been watching paint dry.
anything.
So much more
I
interesting.
could have just been painting. Like I'll take anything over this.
Jesus.
What about you, Quiva?
I'm trying to think. No, because I was, when you started talking about that, I started thinking about Mills and Boone. But I like the little that I've read of Mills and Boone has actually been really entertaining, so I don't count that at all. I don't know. I think like, yeah, I'd have to go probably with the same, because it's been a while since I've read a bad like book, just because I haven't read a book in a while.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think there's like a different subsection, because obviously like you've very succinctly covered all of the things that are wrong with poetry in general. I think there's like another subsection, especially with like you know, more like spoken word poetry that's like, it's not even just like specific to men. Clearly, like I think it comes out the worst in them, but everybody can do it. It's everyone's art form.
A lot of things do come out the worst in us.
Literally, like you've a lot to answer for. But it's just like, I think you know, like really kind of sanctimonious, like artsy kind of preach poetry, and like we're all guilty of writing and we're all guilty of doing it, I think. But like when you see people who haven't quite grown out of the I have seen a hashtag and now that's my poem, you know, and it's just like, everybody, girls, women, we have problems, and then everyone goes, you know, and I'm just like, look, you could be saying so many good things because you have such a, like, your heart is probably in the right place, but you're just literally like co-opting, I'd say maybe like 2 decades worth of like, you know, neo beat poetry to say like a very kind of lukewarm statement that isn't even like, you know, coming from I want to change something. It's like, I want some snaps and I want 50
Yeah.
quid or I want you know
Buzzwords,
million
like.
hits on a button poetry thing, and I'm just like, meh. So yeah, I think like that's kind of something that just pisses me off, and I'm having trouble like thinking of something that's like explicitly very bad, you know. So I'm just gonna go with that for the moment.
What's that McLuhan quote? The medium is the message. So like for me, it doesn't matter how like good the message of your poem is if you're giving it to me in that medium, in that style of, you know, I've watched a couple of button poetry videos and I think that I understand like how to evoke emotion from people, because it's easy to like,
That's not how we do this.
That's how I learned.
That's what I
y'all got genuine feelings about
I mean,
anything.
Concept.
y'all got experiences.
You got your own like idiosyncratic like thought processes. Imagine not co-opting an American accent to get your message across.
Oh God, it's the
Don't
worst.
do that.
If
Just
I
don't.
meet you, you could be the nicest person in the world, but if I catch you putting on a twang when you're doing your poetry because you've literally co-opted your entire style from American slam poets, I don't want to see you
Just
ever again.
cancelled.
I can't deal with it.
I'm now
It's
going
so
through every performance
fake.
I've ever given, going.
None of
I
us
don't
are
know if
guilty of
that's
doing
me.
this at all.
We've never
We've
done
never made a
this.
mistake.
I've never made
Obviously.
a mistake.
Perfection.
My poetry is nothing but good.
All my art is perfect.
Actually, a nice question then. What's your favorite thing that you've written? And it can be from whenever,
Ooh,
you know? Because I think it's nice to think about what you like of your own.
that's a big question.
It is.
Just so much to choose from.
I
What is it and why?
God, for me, I think I get sick of my own work very easily.
Yeah.
It's very hard for me to like maintain a good relationship with something that I've written. I think
Yeah.
especially in terms of like performance poetry,
Yeah.
when it's something that you do
Yeah.
over and over.
Yeah.
You know, you bring out the hits. You have a poem that everybody
Yeah,
knows
yeah.
that you do, and it's like I have trouble like keeping that kind of love and fire in my heart for poetry. You know, so it's usually, I'm gonna be honest, usually whatever the most recent thing I've written is whatever I like the most out of my stuff.
Because you're feeling that at
You
the
know,
time.
like that's what's going through my head, that's what I'm vibing with. Like, you know, sometimes I look back at my old poems and I'm like, I don't even like agree with what I'm saying.
Oh,
this
God, that's
anymore.
such an experience.
Like,
Who the fuck was that?
like,
What is this?
I don't know him. Like,
Oh man, that's nice though.
Yeah. I mean, I would have to agree. Like, I don't have one thing that I'm like, I did that really well, and I'm gonna frame it and put it up on my wall and just keep that forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the same with everything. Like, I don't have a favorite food, or I don't have a favorite color. Like, it's all mood dependent.
yeah.
So I think my work would be the
It's
same.
a shifting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a huge space in my heart for Shoreline Sweetheart and stuff like that. Obviously, you know, stuff that I've written for other people or about other people.
Yeah.
But even then, I look at it and I'm like, I could do better.
Yeah.
So then I have to write another poem.
Which is really nice. It's a nice way to like keep yourself motivated. Though,
Yeah.
Because I find that it really difficult to do personally. Like you know, because I kind of I a lot of the time will get bogged down on my old poetry, whether it's in like a good or a bad context. Because I recently just sorted all of the poetry that I had like on my laptop like in chronological order, and it was weird, but like it was kind of nice to look, because I was like, oh, look at this stuff that actually is like a lot older than I thought, but I still really like it. And you know, even with stuff that's like quite short, it's so weird, like, you know, looking back on something that you do feel really proud of and being like, I like it now, and I don't, not even necessarily like disagree with it, but what I would say now is so different, or
Yeah.
the intonations I would use, the punctuation I would use, it's so different. So it's so important, I think, to keep that in mind.
Punctuation.
I have to actually force myself to use punctuation, because like I just didn't for about 2 years.
Nope.
So
It can
bad.
be fun. I'm just gonna say the tab button is so much fun.
Oh God, I love her.
I love
My
formatting
best
poems in the
friend.
weirdest fucking way. It never has any meaning. I just want attention.
It
That's
just
just it.
looks pretty.
It's just great, because you have a whole page. You don't have to keep it like this. You can put it here. You can put it here. It doesn't have to mean
God, the
anything.
most fun I've ever had was putting together a portfolio for a creative writing poetry workshop class that I did last semester. And you had to give in this portfolio at the end of the class with like 8 to 10 poems. and like a couple of them were poems that I had written like during the class over the course, and like a couple of them were poems that I'd written before myself in my own time. And I just sat down before I handed it in, and I just played with format. I just put the poem in different ways and see how I could lay it on the page, and I changed fonts and I used different colors and things like that. And I was like, this is so much fun because like, you know, it means something to me now that I've done it. But like when you're playing around with it, you're like, I can do whatever I want with this. Like
this one word can be like size 72 and everything else is like size 12 for no reason.
Yeah.
Just because it's fun.
And the person who reads it will be like, what does it mean? And I'm like,
I don't know. Find your own meaning.
Actually, I love that. You know, when you read something and someone's like, oh yeah, and like this, and you're like, yes.
That's so
Also
fun.
that.
Yeah, because
So
you
funny.
remember like doing it yourself, like in English or whatever. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, obviously, or like even not stuff that you're taught, but things that you do analyze. And you're like, oh, you know, maybe it's just interpretation, but like I feel really strongly that like this author or this poet or whatever wrote this, and like this is the connotation that it has. When you're on the other side of that,
so good.
it's so weird. I mean, like maybe you do have something that you're trying to like put in. I know myself, like I shroud everything in metaphor, that, like until it just doesn't mean anything at all. So like maybe that's just me, but it's so much fun like seeing other people be like, so this is what I got from your work, and you're like, how? But it's so fun.
Yeah. I mean, not to be like a society hack or whatever and plug one of our most popular weekly events, but the thing about Writer's Block, which is on every Wednesday from 5 to 7, what room is it in this week?
C214.
C214.
Bring your work.
But the thing about Writer's Block is you get that like hands-on experience a lot, like with someone else, like listening to your work and like taking a second and then giving you their opinions and their interpretations. And a lot of the time you're like, shit, like I never even thought about like the implications of that, you know. And sometimes people who've been there for multiple weeks see something in it that reflects another piece of work that you've done.
That's so special.
And like I remember a friend of mine who comes to Writer's Block had this like character that she kept using in different poems. And we were pointing it out, and we were like, this is almost like a canon of like this
like
character.
a
And she was
series,
like, well, it was just like a name that I had, like it was just a random name that I used. And I was just like, it's so clear that you're building some kind of narrative around this, like, and a lot of the times you just need someone else to point that shit out to you.
Because you don't even notice, like when it's something that you can follow. And I think that's why, because obviously, like especially if it's something that you're not used to, I think getting feedback and constructive criticism, you know, which is what we do, is really difficult to do. But it's so good to even sit and watch other people do it, because like the way that people respond to other people's poetry and how you internalize that is really important. I think it's always good to get feedback, you know, and to listen, because it could just be someone saying, this is my interpretation of it, and to hear a totally different perspective could give you a different perspective on what you're writing and whatever it is, you know. I just want to take this, because we're halfway through now, I just want to take the time to thank like UCDTV and Belfield FM for having us on. So if you guys aren't aware, which you probably are, we're doing the 24-hour live stream. Not all of it, thank God.
Like
some of it.
Hi,
I signed up for one.
You're sitting tight, folks.
See you at 5 p.m. tomorrow. So obviously it is RAG week in UCD. This week we are raising funds college-wide, both for
the DRCC, so the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre, and PA the House.
Yes, and this live stream is just for the DRCC, but it's a really, really worthy cause. The GoFundMe is on the Belfield FM Facebook page, and I think the goal is 300 quid, but whatever you can give is fantastic. And we have these lovely bracelets that the DRCC have donated, so it's a really, really good cause. So everybody go, give money, give what you can.
You know, and if you can't give to this specifically, you know, there's going to be collections all week at all different events. You know, there's always buckets around. Even just a few quid out of your pocket if you've change or anything like that. You know, one cup of tea. Even.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all for a good cause.
You know, and be nice to people collecting. Like, you know, like I know it's shit when you don't have any money on you, because I'm in that boat right now.
Also, I don't carry cash ever, so I'm like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, but I actually have them.
Like I get that it can be annoying when someone's asking you for money and you just don't have it. But like, you know, they're on the other end of that annoyance for a whole day, you know, from hundreds and hundreds of people, and they're just trying to do something good. So, you know, give them a smile.
Exactly. I was just going to say, acknowledgement. Even I actually don't have cash. I'm cool with that. I'm not going to like hunt you down, but just be...
This wasn't me specifically like being like, be nice to Melissa!
But be nice to Melissa.
But do be nice to Melissa, because otherwise I will find you.
I have a Tom, and I will use him. No, but I mean,
Yes, look at these guns.
shout out to the people who like literally emptied their like wallets.
Aw,
Like, I have 15
that's so
cent. I was like, yes,
Yes, every little helps.
to quote Tesco.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
Speaking of little, could I ask you about children's books?
Oh, I mean, why would that be relevant to me?
Just a general question.
Just a general question. Yeah. So I have 2 kids. Shock horror.
Their names are Tom and Quiva.
We love our mother very much.
I don't know when this happened.
Surprise!
Yeah, so something that I'm always interested in is getting them excited about literature, you know, whether it's like writing songs, which go on forever, or, you know, poetry, any of that kind of stuff. And we've gone through like, you know, the Hungry Caterpillar and all the like Ladybird, you know, nice kind of nursery rhyme, like, what's the word, like the Rumpelstiltskins and, you know, all those kind of stuff. But now my kids are 6 and 3.5. So I want to get into, you know, the good stuff. Like, I mean, I know what that means for me. Like, for me growing up, like, Enid Blyton was a big, you know, shout out. Like, Famous Five, Secret Seven, all that kind of stuff, like, really got me excited about, you know, just being a kid and being adventurous. But I'm always interested to hear what other people enjoyed growing up.
Yeah.
So, thoughts?
Do you want to talk first?
Yeah. So there's, like, I'm thinking about books that I read when I was young and then like refound when I was like an older child, just because like they were like really comforting. And I still have them all in my room. There's one that's coming to mind for some reason. I always loved the idea for whatever reason of like building houses, like physically building houses and like people coming together and like making homes. I really loved like Kathy Cassidy's books. I know they're kind of for older kids, but you know, she had that like series of books that were just so gorgeous, and they were all kind of intertwined in little ways. You know?
Yeah, they were all. A lot of them, I think, all of them probably were set in the same like universe.
Yeah, they all
so
had
to
some of
speak.
the same like characters, and there was this one book, Indigo. Was it Indigo Blue? I think. Anyway, there was a book about like you know, like this girl and her little sister and her mom that were like moving around and like. You know, like doing up their houses and stuff like that. And I think, that kind of, actually, now that I think about it, that was kind of a thing that I always loved. So I love that. One of my favorite books that I actually rediscovered a few years ago was called Forever Family. And it was set on a barge, and for as long as I can remember,
Tell me about this.
as long so it's who's it by? Jill Lobel. I found it in my primary school library. Oh my god, I'm never gonna stop talking about this now, because I found it, I forgot the name of the author for years and I couldn't find it, and I found it on Amazon like 2 years ago, and I was like, that's mine now. And it was set in a barge, and then like since I was about 6, I've always wanted to live in a barge because of that book. And then going back to when I was really, really small, there was another book that was called Mimi's Dream House. It was about this family of mice who like lived in the woods or whatever, and there was like loads and loads of them, and the littlest one, Mimi, like she was finally old enough to like build her dream house, and she had all these blueprints to these plans and stuff like that, and she was trying to get all her siblings to come help her build this dream house, and then they were like, no, we're too busy with our own stuff, so they wouldn't read her plans, and they kept building all these different houses that she didn't like, and she was like, I'll just do it myself, and she did, and then all the mice came back and they visited her, and it was really nice. I think just it's like a really nice like you know, sense of like you're creating something, but also they were just like really wholesome books, I think. Yeah, they're my top 3 kids books. Would recommend.
I think possibly from the day I met you, you've been telling me about Forever Family.
Such a good book, Jill Lobel. Go support
I
it.
haven't even like seen this, and I'm always like,
I'll
I
give
have
it
to
to
find
you.
that.
I'll give it to
You
everyone.
keep telling me that.
Remind me,
Secretly,
and I
she's
will.
like, I'm never parting
I
with
don't
it
want
again.
to lose it, but I will if you
God,
remind me.
it's an elaborate prank.
Love that book.
I mean, for me, probably like not only the like most significant like children's books, but like probably the biggest like creative influence on my life was Roald Dahl's books.
Oh my goodness.
You know, like they were the first. You know, story time in my house was always like kind of it always had like a performance and theatrical element to it, like where every character would have a different voice. So, you know, I always associated good stories with performance and with storytelling. And there was just so much richness to those books, you know, like it was the first book I can remember being read to me was by Roald Dahl. The first book I ever sat down and actually managed to read myself was, I think, The Magic Finger by Roald Dahl. Like, you know, and it was something that I was that kid who just wouldn't shut. I still am that person who fixates on something and won't shut up about it. So anytime someone tries to talk to me about anything else, I'm like, yeah, Matilda.
So real.
We're gonna talk about Matilda now, please. You know, like, and you know, the idea of working with an illustrator as well has always been a really huge thing to me. Like, of having like a kind of parallel career with someone where our works are like collaborative. You know, one of my works that was published in UCD's Calvia Lecter, our publication, was illustrated by our wonderful artist Maeve Sheridan, and I'm in love with it. Like, it's gorgeous, but it could be the worst drawing in the world, and I would be in love with it because I'm like, it's like, oh, I wrote a thing, and then it like brought something else into the world, and now there's these two interlocking like pieces of art that exist, and I'm just like, this is too much. Like,
it's gorgeous,
you know. But like, I think for kids, like, Roald Dahl is just something that
I do love
you should be exposed to, like, because there's just there's a mischievous sort of creative energy to it.
I mean,
you
the
know.
BFG totally scared the crap.
Oh god,
terrifying, all terrifying. They're actually all quite scary.
Yeah, that James and the Giant Peach film.
Oh my god,
that's like stop motion. Like,
I forgot that for years.
Fucking terrifying.
So
It's
creepy.
gorgeous, but it's so scary.
It's so creepy.
Yeah.
Oh,
no.
jeepers creepers.
And I think was it George's Marvelous Medicine? I remember I saw a play of it actually, and it just really creeped me out.
No, witches creepy.
Which is
that
hands down
movie.
worst thing.
Iconic. So scary.
And was it Angelica Houston?
Yeah.
What a woman. Oh my god. Just because I think it's just because their names sound similar, but like I think also the theatricals and stuff maybe start thinking maybe not for quite as young as your children are, but when the time
I'll
comes,
think of that.
Roddy Doyle.
Oh, absolutely.
I know he has children's books, actually.
Roddy Doyle's children's books.
They're
are
so funny.
phenomenal. They're so
check
good,
these
and they're
out.
so funny.
The Meanwhile Adventures, like
They're
my
so
favorite, probably my
funny.
favorite like
You know.
comedy book as a child.
If your children enjoy poo humor,
Yes.
Which we have established, yes, they do.
they will absolutely get a kick out of it. There's
so funny.
there's a whole book that's set in like the microsecond of someone about to step in dog shit.
It's incredible.
And it's the fucking best thing I ever read when I was a kid. It's the funniest fucking book.
It's
Do you know what? This is actually perfect because we like to go to the cinema, and have you seen that ad that sings about dog poo?
No.
Oh my goodness! So it's like dog poo, and it goes on and on about dog poo, and you know how you should pick up after your dog.
Yeah.
My children love it. Like, it has become the jingle. It's like we're going to the cinema. Oh, dog poo. So I think they are totally going to be on board with this.
Oh, absolutely, they're gonna love it. It's so funny.
It's so good. Absolutely would recommend.
God, I love Roddy Doyle. I'm doing a class at the moment that's like it's about like gender in like the new Irish state and like constructing like masculinity and femininity, and Robbie Doyle's novel A Star Called Henry is on it, and it's so good. Like, you know, pretty much all the reading I've done in the last 2 years has been course reading, so stuff that I've you know, when I do read anything, like occasionally it's the stuff I actually need to do for my grades. But like, it's so good, and he's just got such a dry wit, and like this sharpness to it that's just so funny.
Oh no, it's unreal.
I'm actually so excited now to like create this list of like, this is what we're reading.
What's top of it for you? Like what when you were like, oh my god, I'm gonna have kids, you're like, what am I gonna read to them? Like,
I mean, like definitely Enid Blyton was like the Magic Faraway Tree and stuff like that. But like,
just like,
other than that, I was a pretentious kid.
oh my god, what did you read?
So at 9 I read To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, stop.
At 9, like
Yeah. No, we've all been there.
Yeah, I mean, I was a pretentious kid. So I also read, which I actually think it is a proper kids book. Rumour Godden wrote it. What's it called? The Didacoy.
I never heard of it.
Oh my, you guys need to check this out. Like, it was so good.
Like an old person.
Oh,
are you implying that I am old? No, so it was such a good book.
Mm.
It was about this little girl who lived with her nan in, what are those things called that they're pulled by horses? You know, those, like, I keep coming up with the wrong word. It's not
Like
a caravan type.
Yeah.
Like a traditional caravan.
A traditional, yeah. And it was just like her life of, like, she was being forced to go to school and stuff, and it was just completely new to her, and all of her experience of, like, just trying to fit in, and it was beautifully written. I love it.
That's so gorgeous.
You check it out. They did it great.
They did it.
Rumor Garden.
Oh,
You
nice.
heard it here first.
Lovely name actually as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
Love a bit of Dr. Seuss as well.
Oh yeah.
Can't
For all ages, you can't go wrong with a bit
Green
of
eggs
Dr.
and ham,
Seuss.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
honestly.
can't. Yeah.
I think like the only like author consistently that I had like an emotional connection with, and who I read like all the way up through, like from my childhood to my like adolescence, was Jacqueline Wilson.
I was just about to say, I was just like, God,
a
you
lot of
remember Jacqueline
teenagers-
Wilson?
yeah.
Like,
Oh
that
my
woman
God.
did wonders for my self-esteem.
Just
This is like
Ricard
this
just
is
had
after my time.
so like I mean really like actually very intense stuff, but really
Yeah.
really good, like because of the way that it was framed for kids. And I mean she had like different books for different age groups, but of course like you always read something that you weren't supposed to. Like it's always like consistently like about kids who had like really rough home lives, or just like something was going on, and like a lot of them were really really funny.
Yeah.
Like and the way that they were framed was really really like lighthearted. Like I mean I think there was kind of like a reputation for them being quite overdramatic.
Yeah.
But it was just like, I mean, looking back on them, I'm like, well, of course they are. I mean, they're usually from the perspective of like a kid or a teenager.
Yeah.
So it would feel really dramatic and really urgent.
She's
Yeah.
the Tracy Beaker.
Yeah. I never really liked Tracy Beaker as a book series. I thought a lot of her other stuff was really
That
good.
became a TV thing now.
Yeah.
Like,
See, like I did like Tracy Beaker, but I didn't think that it like. I definitely didn't think it was her best when I was a
No.
kid. There was other book series that I was way more into.
Yeah,
That I connected to more.
Yeah, that other one, what was it called? About the girl who had to move into the hotel.
Oh
She was like a comedian, and she was always telling these really bad jokes, and she was like
God,
10.
there were so many.
Yeah,
so
there was
many really good ones.
There's another one, actually a really interesting one that I read countless times. I don't remember what the title was, but it was like this girl, and she was doing a project about like Victorian times, and her project was to like she wasn't really into that into school or whatever, but her project was to like research a Victorian person who lived in like your area, and she started writing a book or like a diary for like a Victorian maid, and it was just stuff that was going on in her life, but like juxtaposed like in the past, and it was really, so every other chapter would be so the main character's name was Charlotte, and then like the fake like Victorian maid was called Lottie, and she just read about what was going on in her life, but like in this other context, and it was really sweet, like it was just really lovely to read.
One of them
really
was about a primary theme, and it was about baking.
Yeah, actually,
and it was this girl and her mother who moved away from their abusive father, and they moved to this like seaside town.
Yeah.
And the girl was like really fixated on like learning how to bake like the perfect cookie. She was constantly like changing the
Cookie,
recipe.
wasn't she?
Yeah, she was called Cookie.
So cute.
And it was just a really heartwarming story. Like that's the thing, is a lot of them were very heavy stuff, but there was always a good conclusion to it. You always came away from it feeling good.
That's good. Yeah, really really lovely stuff. Yeah, because the thing is, like, some of them were like were framed like where the central storyline was based around like something that was happening to them, and some of it was just like, we're in this situation because of something that had happened in the past, but like and then like the story ensues, but I think that's a really healthy way and a really like constructive and like entertaining way of like introducing kids to it, because I mean it's stuff that like I had because it's all of these different issues. I mean, like a lot of them were about like parents who had drug issues, or a lot of them were about kids in foster homes, stuff like that. And it's just a really really it's kind of the only way I can conceptualize of talking to kids about this. And it's the only way that they're ever really going to understand
that. And
any of
Sesame
this
Street. Sesame Street is
Street. I never watched it though, actually, as a kid.
No, like my parents actually, they bought us a Sesame Street tape for when my youngest brother was born.
Yeah.
About, you know, dealing with a new
New
sibling.
baby.
Because like I have two brothers, but Keane and I are only a year and a half apart.
Okay,
So we
yeah.
don't remember the other not being around.
Right, yeah.
And then Jack is 7 years younger than me, so it was like a huge change
Yeah.
for this new baby.
Yeah.
So, you know, but we watched the Sesame Street tape where, like, you know, all of the 10 stories were very conveniently like about like, you know, dealing with a new baby and like, you know, what to do if you feel like you're not being paid attention to, and how to like properly verbalize your feelings instead of lashing out in anger and all this stuff. I'm just like, I look back and I'm like, God, it was so good.
Children's media is
So
important.
good. And they're still doing a lot of stuff
They
like
are,
that
yeah,
now, like
yeah.
like dealing with like a parent being in prison or
yeah.
passing away
Yeah.
and
it's
all
so
this
good.
stuff, and it's so good because you know, kids need to have these things explained to them.
Absolutely.
And you know, children have a remarkable intelligence to understand things when it's explained to them.
More accepting, to be honest.
Honest to God, like there's so many conversations you could have with children that you would struggle to have with an adult.
Absolutely.
And they would understand it, I think, a lot better, because they just they're like, well, yeah, that's fine. And the thing is, like, obviously because they just don't really know any better, kids are very frank about things and they'll ask questions that are uncomfortable. But like, it's like, okay, well, this is just a conversation we're having, because they don't feel embarrassed.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't need to.
You know.
It's so refreshing, actually, when you have these conversations.
Yeah.
You're just like, it is okay to ask this.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm going to say to you right now.
I don't have an
But it's
answer.
cool.
I'm
right
uncomfortable,
now.
but you're fine. This is grand.
You know.
Yeah.
Googling, is there a book on this?
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Bring it back to literature.
Actually, speaking of, I don't know whether you'll know, but are there any good books that deal with, you know, like say LGBTQ plus, like for kids, you know, something that explains it? Because obviously I'm of a time traveling. But you know, it wouldn't have been something that was openly discussed in
There are definitely a lot more things now.
Yeah.
I always remember that book, Tango Makes Three, I think it's called. It's about these two, it's a children's book, but it's based on these two real life male penguins in a zoo that are a couple.
Yeah.
And about how the zookeepers realized from their behavior that they were upset that they didn't have a child, so they couldn't have a baby. So they gave them an egg to like, you know, to sit on and hatch together, and it wasn't of a penguin, I'm pretty sure, but it was some other bird that they had in the zoo that like had lost its mother.
Right.
So they raised this baby together, and the baby's name was Tango. So it was these two male penguins and Tango, and it's so lovely.
I'm literally rushing out to go buy this book.
Like, honestly, I
there's
cannot
so many,
recommend it enough, because like anything I've seen of it, like it's like, you know, it's used a lot in like libraries and stuff to like read to kids. Like kids get it immediately. Like, you know, and even if they're confused and they ask questions, like, you know, like, why are like the two boy penguins together? It's like, oh, but they love each other and they're having a baby, like how my parents love each other and they had me. It just they pick up on that stuff so quickly and so just freely, you know.
I've seen a lot of I wouldn't know that much about like young children's lit, but I've seen things that's like you know, kind of older children's or young teens fiction, and like particularly YA. I've seen a good few things. There's one I have actually, a couple of actually that I would definitely recommend that are Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda.
Yep.
Which is again kind of for older teens, but really good. I think they're making a movie out of it. Actually.
They are. Yeah, it's coming out soon.
Yeah,
it looks really lovely.
And then what's the other one? Oh, it's so funny because it's like the fake Harry Potter one. So it's based. Okay, so the actual. There's an original book called Fangirl, which is by Rainbow Rowell, an incredible, like gorgeous, very like lovely, heartwarming YA author. She wrote this book about like a college student who's doing like a creative writing BA or something. And in this book, she writes what is essentially like heavily coded, like, you know, Harry Potter slash fiction, but she had to make like a fake wizarding world. And then Ray Morrell wrote that book, and it's really good. Like, it's so good. I think it's called Carry On.
It just always makes me think of Mia Thermopolis from Princess
Diaries. Because she's my slash fiction.
And then she wrote this whole like book in the novels, and then Meg Cabot actually published it.
Meg Cabot is incredible also. But this book is like, it's really funny because it's like they are taking the piss out of Harry Potter in a way, and there's also vampires and also like, you know, like really tender, like, you know, like gay love, and it's like very really funny I think it's mostly funny because it is taking the piss out of Harry Potter, which we have established is a good thing too.
Yes, we're a fan of that.
Yes, so they're my 2 recommendations, but probably again for a little bit older.
For older, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really lovely to see like that there are so many more children's books.
Absolutely.
You know, particularly, you know, things that are going to have like a lot of color and pictures and, you know, story to them that like kids will like actually enjoy and not just be like, so like
education,
this is how this works. It's like nobody wants to fucking read that shit.
No, it's like those really awkward books that like parents get when they want to like have the talk.
God, yeah.
The talk.
I came from a book talk family where you would wake up one morning and there would be a book next to your like bedside table and it'd be like, what is this? And
what
then I'd read it and I'd be like, blood's gonna come from where?
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yes. I mean,
we love confrontation.
They definitely play a role like in starting those really awkward conversations, but it's good to see that there's a larger variety of you know,
they don't have to
there.
be like hey, here's what's gonna happen. It's just like, no, here's a story, you know, here's like an experience for you, and it's really nice.
I do have to say though, like I was like, not to brag, but I was reading at quite a high level from a young age, just because I did come from a family that like read constantly. And for some reason, like my mom has always been like very strict on like what films we were allowed to watch. She did not properly monitor what kind of books I was allowed to read.
So
like
much more dangerous.
It's so dangerous because you get to like 13 and you like, you know, you like read Twilight and you read like all the other like YA like vampire books. So then suddenly you start picking up any book that like has like vampire in the title, and then suddenly it's just like, he put his what in the where?
Excuse
like,
me?
There's a place for that. I beg your fucking pardon. Like,
I didn't sign up for this. No, very very bad.
So I had so many books when I was like a young teen that were like highly inappropriate, but my mom was just like, this film is 12A, you're 11, so you can't go.
This film uses mild bad language. You will not watch this. However, you can read about, you know, vampire sex all you like.
I think it was PC Cast had this really good series of like older like teen YA books that was like about vampires and stuff, and I maintain it was really good. It was definitely still slightly too adult for me,
right?
But then she also had this series of books aimed at women. But the covering was really similar to these other books, so I ended up getting them as well. They were called like the Goddess of series. So it was these books about these women like who would suddenly be thrust into like ancient Greece or like something, and they would you know, learn how to empower themselves with their female sexuality, and like they would always end up with like the Minotaur or something. And it's just like, oh, but he's actually this like really like sensitive, but also
there's so much more to
sensual man, and I'm just like, I don't understand what's going on.
They have a what and they put it where?
I don't know what's happening.
It's half animal. Stop. Like something similar happened to my sister when she was like, I think maybe 16 or 17. She was doing classics but leaving, and my parents were like, oh, you know, she's really into this thing, and you know, like we want to get her some stuff that's like, you know, she must have been younger. She might have been about 15. And they wanted to like support her interest, so they bought her the Song of Achilles, and they did not realize it was full on sex.
That is such an amazing book.
I've heard it's incredible, but she was like, I was not ready for this.
Fucking phenomenal.
Mind blowing.
Yes, very much.
But
so.
absolutely, like I actually read that when I was about 18, but it like was 100% something I would have picked up when I was 12 and read.
Exactly.
Very taken aback.
It's just like, it was a good time.
So let your kids explore literature, but also like throw an eye on them every now and again.
Keep that in check.
So just they are reading, and it's something to be very very aware about. Just keep an eye on it. So we're gonna wind up soon, but just before we go, I want to make everybody aware of the upcoming events. So obviously Tom was talking about the Writer's Block event, so that's tomorrow is Wednesday.
Yes, tomorrow 5 to 7.
C214. What would you guys what would be your general recommendations about Writer's Block? What would you tell the kids?
Awesome.
Right, good.
Right, good. Come on.
Good word, right.
Good,
yes.
good word, right.
Yes.
Or you know, bad
or bad
word.
word, right? And
It's
that's
all
okay.
fine. It's
That's
all fine.
okay. We can work with that.
Yeah. So we do writing prompts for the first hour, and then we can do some critical feedback on people's writing. You don't have to share if you don't want to, but you're always more than welcome. And then on Thursday, we're going to do our annual RAG Poetry Slam. RAG Slam! Woo, woo, woo.
They gave me a keyboard. I didn't
And we
find.
forgot to use
I
it.
couldn't find a strategic use for the keyboard, but.
Poetry! Yes. And we're also raising money. We're raising money for the movements for asylum seekers in Ireland and United Against Racism. And that's from, I think it's from 5 to 7 in Theatre Or in the Newman Building. And there'll be pizza, there'll be vino, it'll be all good. There'll be poetry, clearly. There'll be no pianos, unfortunately. But
Dang.
there is now, so. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What else do we have coming up?
What else do we have coming up? We are currently accepting submissions to our publication, Caveat Lector. So we're accepting poems, accepting short stories. Every week in our email, we do writing prompts for members that are also going to be featured in the publication. I think the deadline is the 8th or 9th of March. So you've loads of time to get your writing in, but just get it in as soon as possible, and it may be featured. It may be illustrated, as Tom was talking about earlier on. Anything else?
Yeah. We're also working with the InterVarsity Poetry Slam, which is coming up soon. So it is a slam poetry competition between all the fine universities of this island.
Anybody.
You know, and all you have to do is submit a piece of audio, a video, or a text now. I've discovered they're accepting text submissions of a piece of your own poetry. And you could potentially be chosen to compete in this slam.
Yeah.
I
UCD.
competed last year representing UCD, and I had a fucking blast.
Nice.
You know, there's something about being surrounded by people who are just there and enthusiastic about poetry that's just incredible. And also, we all get really drunk.
Yeah. So if that's your bag, then come along.
Bag of cans.
Bag of cans.
Ha 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 ha.
Sorry.
Nice one. You're down with the kids.
I'm cool. I'm a cool mom.
You're our cool mom.
She's the coolest mom I know.
Oh, thanks.
We're cooler when no one else will. So any parting words, folks? Any parting gifts for
Follow me on Twitter.
Subscribe
down below.
Rate this video. Flag.
Donate
Donate to the DRCC. Anything that you can give is fantastic.
Yeah.
And stick around for the rest of the 24-hour live stream. It is all very, very fun.
Because YOLO.
Absolutely. You really do. OLO.
I'm totally down with
Yes.
Happy 2012.
OMG. You are so DTF with the lingo.
But like, you guys are like my BFFs. And yeah.
We're not BFFLs.
Wait.
We gotta end this now.
Wow.
Upsetting.
SMH.
Now we gotta go because this is the
Okay.
situation.
They're kicking us out for crimes against.
And now we're in a fight with Melissa.
Crimes against language.
Okay.
But you know,
Yeah.
we good.
Wave, guys. Wave.
Bye. Thank you guys so much for listening.